often I go to many military conferences and it's a dog and pony show and death by PowerPoint, but not this one. This is a tool that is fantastic that you can use anywhere with anybody, and it's a stress assessment tool. First of all is the green zone. In the green zone this is where we always want to live. The green zone is when we're good to go, we're well-trained, fit and focused, families are happy, for the military, the units are cohesive. That's where life is good. We really, that's where we always want to live. And with this, the individual is responsible for themselves, for staying in this green zone. But let me tell you something. Whenever a stressor hits, 100% of the time for 100% of the people, whenever there's a stressor, you will react. So in the yellow zone, you have stress or impairment. It's mild and temporary. You can be anxious or irritable or sad. You can have physical or behavioral changes. So for the families, if a family is in the yellow zone, then children might be having a little bit of trouble in school. The couple may not be communicating effectively. Family time might be compromised. There might be some reduced intimacy, a little more arguing, between the couples, things like that. That's the yellow zone. It's where things begin to get a little rough, and you need to begin to look at that, get some help, get back to the green zone. Now, the next one is when you're in the orange zone. And in this orange zone, it's more severe or persistent distress or impairment. It might leave lasting memories, reactions, and expectations. This orange zone is when people are beginning to get in trouble. Somebody might be losing control of their emotions. They might not be thinking properly. For some of our warriors, they frequently may be unable to fall asleep, or they can't stay asleep because they're waking up from recurrent vivid nightmares. They might feel persistent, intense guilt or shame, like we talked about with a moral injury. They might be having panic attacks. I remember I had a warrior, a Marine, wonderful guy, year and a half after he'd come back from war, came in to talk to me. Chaplain, I don't know what's going on. I'm just having these panic attacks out of the blue. It's a common reaction. They might be experiencing rage. I tell the warriors, if there's holes in your drywall because you've punched it, there is an issue with anger and rage. That would be the orange zone. Sometimes they might be losing their memory or ability to think rationally. They're not able to enjoy the normal activities that they've had before. They display a significant and persistent change in their behavior or appearance. They're just not taking care of themselves. The signs in this zone are indicators that operational stress problems are persistent, and it could be serious. For the families, if the family is in the orange zone, children can be having failing grades. They be having major discipline problems at home or at school. The couple can be experiencing a total loss of closeness or intimacy. There's feelings of chaos at home, constant fighting. There's silence, no communication going on, or there's physical or verbal abuse. In this quadrant, in the orange zone, they need to get help. This is where the clergy can step in, begin to help out whoever, get them the professional help. If you find people in the orange zone, they need help. Now, for the red zone, this is the ill zone. This chart lists the signs and the symptoms that would be present here. There's potentially very serious illnesses that these require prompt medical attention and evaluation. Post-traumatic stress disorder is in here. Anxiety and panic disorders and severe depression fall into this area. Now, these symptoms are more severe versions of what happens in the orange zone. They're injuries that don't heal without help, or they may have symptoms persisting for more than 60 days. But what's really scary is sometimes the symptoms may get worse and then disappear. And they think, oh, I'm fine. But then it comes back like gangbusters and gets worse and just totally takes them by surprise. But what's interesting is there's also many illnesses and injuries can look like the red zone. They can include things like traumatic brain injury, again, which are undiagnosed many times. They could even be infections or severe dehydration can make people look like they're in the red zone. But if you have people that are showing these kind of things, what's important to realize is they need prompt medical evaluation. So, what I'm going to give you now, this is an assessment summary. And you can take this yourself. Find out, how are your stress levels today? Here's 8 different areas of relationships. And you look at each one individually. With your relationships, are they okay? Is there tension? Is there coldness or fighting? You go through each one of these. And with substance abuse, with the one with substance abuse, I don't let you answer it. I say, how would others say you are doing with substance abuse, especially with my warriors? You know, then they a lot of times answer that one differently. But if you have check marks, several check marks in the yellow zone or orange zone, that means help is needed. But you can utilize this tool in your congregation, helping people look at their stress levels and then what needs to be focused on in their lives to bring everybody back to the green zone. Because that's ultimately the goal for the warriors, for families, is to live in that green zone. So this is a great tool.
We're going to pause for a moment and go back to the check area here. And Neely, you raised the question, what can we do to help families who don't know how to deal with changes in personality?
There's a lot of reintegration events that are extremely helpful. There's something called Yellow Ribbon out there, and that's the government has put millions of dollars into helping our warriors reintegrate. For the Marine Corps and Navy, we have what's called returning warrior workshops, and the warriors and their family member, their spouse, significant other, go away for an entire weekend and they get educated on all the changes that take place because of war, the changes that take place in the families, what happens. And so if people can attend some of these events, that will help them massively in reintegrating, coming back to civilian life. The other thing is to get family counseling or couple counseling, but I'm going to give you some resources at the end that are wonderful with vet centers, with military-trained people that can also help explain in a counseling process as well to help understand what's going on and help the couple begin to communicate, because that's the hugest issue. So Yellow Ribbon events or some of the counseling resources that I'm going to give you at the end. And in fact, you can even Google Yellow Ribbon events, and you'll come up with portals that will show all the events all over the country. And any warrior can go to any services events that are on there. It's not like Army puts on only for Army, that they're open to every branch of the service. So great events that are out there all over the country. Okay, so specifically, what can the church do? First of all, offer hospitality. You can offer your church space to be utilized for a veteran support group. You can call your VFW and tell them, hey, you want to have a support group for veterans to reach out. That would mean the world. So many veterans feel isolated. Nobody understands. They feel like they have leprosy and nobody wants to touch them because they don't know how to begin the discussions. You will get people coming out in droves if you offer a support group or a hospitality group for spouses and family members to just begin to have those kind of discussions. If you have those groups in your church, it can be life-changing for some of these people. Another thing is to keep the veterans and families in your prayers at church. Keep them on the prayer chains. You know, Sunday morning church in the prayers. Let them know you are recognizing the sacrifices they're making, that you care. Even mentioning veterans makes them think somebody's thinking about me, and that means the world for them. You also want to create circles of care and support. With these reservists, when they are mobilized, these families basically are left in the dust. They really are. They don't know what resources are out there. Sometimes financially, they're flipped on their ear. They could be making a whole lot less money than when the other person was doing their civilian job. They can be facing so many crises. If it's a mom and children at home, they can be overwhelmed. Stephen's ministry is a great ministry. They can just reach out. If you can do simple things like mowing their yards, finding out other basic things that need to be fixed around the house. If you can reach out to your reservist families and say specifically, what are some needs that you have? Because I'll tell you right now, it's an overwhelming experience when your spouse is deployed and you've never done it before. Even if you have done it, it's still overwhelming. Another thing you can do is highlight the service member's departure. You want to pray for them, but what's really important is get permission. Get permission. Don't surprise them. That's the last thing you want to do. You want permission from the family. If they say that's fine, to pray for them before they depart, that's great, but especially upon return. So often these warriors have been going 24/7. They have gone nonstop, and they want to come home and crash and hide in their closet because they just want to relax. But what do the family members want to do? Party time, bring the family, bring the community, have the hoopla. And sometimes it's the last thing the warrior wants. They may not want that recognition, so ask them for permission. But if they give you that permission to have some kind of recognition of their return at church, that could mean the world. Also set up a military appreciation night, just when you have a dinner and you invite people in your community. You will be surprised how many people can come out. They'll come out in droves. And not only will that help you reach out to them, then they'll also be able to find out who else is in their community that's in the military, and that can help them build relationships for themselves. So hosting those appreciation nights can be incredible. Another huge issue is the employment possibilities. If you can help them network with employment, as I said, their jobs are supposed to be secured when they deploy, but many times the jobs disappear or the jobs they come back to, they just can't work in them anymore. And if you can help them network for employment, that would change their lives. The first step for healing is when people can become independent. And when they feel independent and they're having a job, they can begin to get healing once again. So, you want to remember and respond to the service members based on the military context of where they're at. Each phase has its own issues with the pre-deployment, the anxieties, the deployment, what's going on there, the abandonment for the reservists, and then the post-deployment, the reintegration. What's needed is to develop the relationships with the families, especially while they're gone, and just help the people, and that can help bring the service members in as you build those specific relationships with the people. Specifically, let me give you some specifics of what you can do for warrior outreach. You can attend their initial return. A lot of times there's a unit's official welcome home ceremony, but more often than not, you're going to have a reservist fly into the airport by themselves in East Podunk, Iowa. That there's not going to be any fanfare. That's where you as the church can step in. Get people from church, have some balloons, have some banners, welcome them home. That would mean the world. Reservists feel so forgotten for their sacrifices. They go back to work, a couple weeks later, and people just ask, how was the war? That they don't understand. So if you can create a welcome home, that would be phenomenal. You can schedule, a welcome ritual at church after asking the family and the warrior. Is that something they would want to do? Get the permission. You want to initiate communication. You want to communicate with that warrior. Within like a week, 2 weeks, make a phone call. Hey, how's it going? I'd love to get together for a cup of coffee. They may not want to start with. Be persistent. Be persistent, because they need somebody to be persistent to get into their lives. And you just say, hey, how's it going? What's going on? How can I help you? What do you need? Any ways you can communicate and begin to invite them out would be great. You also want to offer family support and couple support. Arrange child care so the couples can spend time together. Encourage them to go to marriage enrichment retreats. The reserves have lots of marriage enrichment retreats that they can still go on Encourage them to go on those retreats because they need to learn how to communicate once again. It's a whole new day and age. And also, like you were asking about those yellow ribbon events, encourage them. They may not know about yellow ribbon, but you do. So encourage them to go on these yellow ribbon events, especially first and foremost, to help the families, to help them begin that communication process. And another thing that's cool is encourage them to do outreach. These people have been feeling like they've been changing history, like they're history makers. And what's important is if you encourage them to go on a mission trip or some major outreach where they're making a difference, you'd be surprised. These warriors just might jump on it. So let me give you a few summarizing points. First of all, remember, the warrior community, we can never understand the intimacy that takes place, how tight that community is. They grieve when they separate from it. Remember the warrior training? They're trained for combat. They don't know how to come home. They don't know how to let you in. They don't know how to build those relationships. They need help in doing it. Remember the spiritual recovery. The spiritual recovery takes place best in the context of a caring, supportive community of faith that shares the good news of God's grace and reconciliation. They need help with that spiritual recovery because they've done things and seen things that we could never imagine in our worst nightmares. And also remember, these warriors are history makers. They've been involved in a cause bigger than themselves. And too often life is mundane. Invite them on a life-changing mission trip somewhere else in the world or in our country. It can change their lives. So those are some things to remember about our warriors. Real briefly, I want to look at redeployment. Even though the wars are winding down, a lot of our active duty jobs, believe it or not, are now going over to the reserves because they want the active duty just to all be back home. So we still have reservists getting redeployed. This is a serious issue, the multiple deployments. Post-traumatic stress disorder, depression, and suicide, they're at a greater risk because it's taxing them beyond their limits when they go on multiple deployments. So we've got to be aware of that. If they're going away again, it's raising the risks. We need the warrior care. The care for these service personnel and their families is so necessary. It's so intense that especially between the deployments, if we can touch base with them, it's critical to try to offer them that help, that care, that support. And we need to be alert for undiagnosed post-traumatic stress disorder and depression because when they're facing that redeployment, they'll just suck it up. And it makes them even that much more fragile as they go out a second time. They've also, if they've had buddies that passed away, if they're grieving, have that post-traumatic stress disorder, they'll delay it all. They can't walk through those feelings. They've got to pack it away as they get ready to deploy again. So just remember, there is high risk if they're redeploying once again. Just remember that. It's incredible. So specifically, one-on-one, what can you do? Be prepared for a confessional conversation. If you build a rapport and a relationship enough with a warrior that they may need to just confess what's out there and then offer them the forgiveness of God, they need to be able to experience that. That be prepared. You might hear things you could never imagine, but the bottom line is don't have any kind of guttural response because it'll shut them down. You need to be that unconditional listening ear that says, it's okay. I know it wasn't your choice. That's what they need to hear. Also know your own boundaries. You need to know when you need to refer. But what I tell people is it's a warm handoff. You can help refer to one of these agencies I'm going to tell you about real soon, but stay with them. Always be their friend. Don't just say, whoa, this is beyond me, and dump them. That's abandonment. Still be their friend, but let them deal with their deepest issues in counseling. That's highly important. And also be aware, veterans need to prepare that it doesn't happen overnight. Reintegration is a process. It's a process that they have to walk through, and it will take time. So one of the things that's important is having a referral list, which is what we're going to look at right now. I am the biggest supporter, the biggest cheerleader for the vet centers. If you don't get anything out of this seminar, I want you to remember vet center. These vet centers are gold because the vet centers are counseling centers. Many people they're all licensed, but many of them are prior veterans themselves. What's important is it's not connected with the VA. One of the things to recognize, write this down, it is confidential. Nothing goes into their service records. People are so afraid of stuff going in the records. They can go to the vet center, individual counseling, family counseling, group counseling, and they can get them in the next day. Even the vet centers even have mobile vet centers, these buses that they take. They're like mobile homes, that they can take, and they go around the country, different places. Go online and find out where your local vet center is. It's free, and it's one of the greatest resources out there. You see, we have the other resources, suicide prevention, Department of VA. They still have many resources the VA offers. But what's also cool is modern technology. With these post-deployment tools, afterdeployment.org, that's a comprehensive portal for all post-deployment issues. It even has online assessments. They can go online on some of these things with several of these ones and do self-assessments. Do I have anger issues, rage issues, post-traumatic stress? They can even do counseling online with some of these places. So your best action right now as someone that cares is educate yourself. Educate yourself on these resources that are there, so when you come alongside these people who think there's no hope, you can show them the hope, all the things that are there via modern technology. So even if you live in East Podunk, Iowa, it's okay because of modern technology, they can get connected and get the help that they need. Some other resources, a lot of Veterans Administration services that are listed here. Military One Source, let me highlight that. That is a one-stop shop for any kind of question a military personnel would want to know. It can find out babysitting services, where are the best places to get your car fixed, what are my educational benefits as a military person. They will research any and every kind of question. They can get you counseling. However, they don't deal with post-traumatic stress disorder. But if you need other kinds of counseling, they can get you set up with counseling services. So there's a variety of tools here. In your own congregation, your parish nurses can help out. Also, this website, careforthetroops.org, has a huge section on churches reaching out and helping veterans. I encourage you to check that one out. And also our United Methodist Endorsing Agency tool. They have created a tool on how to reach out to our deployed personnel. That's wonderful. It's an active document that they keep updating over and over. And finally, these are some wonderful resources in our bibliography that can help you just to understand ways to reach out. Bible study, you can do a study on some of these books like Beyond the Yellow Ribbon, how to begin to get groups to reach out. These are great, great resources to help you further understand the issues and concerns that our warriors and their families face.
Thanks, Shelley, for your leadership today. As we prepare to bring conclusion to today's webinar, we just want to remind you of some of the attachments that are available for you as a resource. Number one is the stress continuum model that Shelley talked about during the webinar, and then her self-assessment summary, which she felt would be a good monitor for assessing stress, the triggers of stress in life. And you can apply that to any given situation, but just a great resource tool. And then we also provided the operational stress reaction guide as a tool for you to use as well. In addition, there is a worksheet on stress reactions, a resource page which we've identified with resources as well as the bibliography. And then we want to mention the active document that UMEA has available on its website and also available to you as attachment, which is the Congregational Care for Service Members and Their Family. with that, if you have questions that arise through your use of the webinar, or as you bring leadership to your congregations or those who you're in service to, we want you to be in touch with us, and we will network the answers for you or get you in touch with the right people. Again, thank you, Shelley, for your leadership today. Thank you, everybody, for participating in this webinar. We hope that you have a great day as you bring leadership to the communities you serve. Take care.